In preparation for drafting your prototype, we're going to be, you're either going to draft a skirt block or a basic pant block. Okay, so this first video, we're going to take you through drafting of the basic skirt block, and that's on page 30 in your books. So we're first going to go through the basic measurements that you need to draft the skirt block. So to draft our skirt block, and everybody, we should be for our prototype, be drafting to an Australian standard size 12. In the very front of your book, there's the measurement chart there, so you refer to that. So for the skirt block, you're going to need the waist measurement, which is 70 centimetres, the hip measurement, which is 95. We're talking about circumference here, okay, so that's, remember, around the body, okay, and then also the centre front length. Now, for this example, I'm going to draft a 60 centimetre length. However, you could actually draft your skirt block to the measurement of your prototype. So you just maybe just think about that, just that one proportion before you begin. So this one's a variable. These two measurements that are the body measurements are not variables, okay? So what we use to draft blocks is something that's called a scale. So the scale is essentially the governing proportion which all other measurements are derived from. Okay, so in the case of the skirt block, the scale is equal to the hip measurement plus 6 centimetres. Okay, so our hip is 95. So if we add 6 to that measurement, that gives us 101 centimetres. So remember, the 6 centimetres, if you think back to what we've been talking about in class, okay, the 6 centimetres is the ease around the body. Okay, so hip plus 6 centimetres. Then it asks us to create other measurements from the scale. So this one is the overriding scale, 101. So it asks us to find what half the scale is. So half of 101 centimetres is 50.5 centimetres. Okay? Then it asks us for a quarter of the scale. So that would be 25.25 centimetres. Now, the last measurement here, which is the 1/12 of the scale, you'll probably have to do on your calculator. If you're not confident with maths, you could complete all of the scale measurements using your calculator. So I've worked this out ahead of time. So 1/12 of the scale is, it's something like 8.41 something, something, something. So you just round it, okay? So we're going to round that to the first decimal. Okay, so we're going to give ourselves 8.4 centimetres. Okay, so that basically helps us to block out the width-wise proportions of our block, okay? And then we come on to another set of equations. So these equations give us the shaping over the side seam and the dimensions of the front and back darts. So for the shaping, the waist shaping, it's worked out the scale for this one is the difference, DIFF just stands for diff, okay? So difference between waist and hips. So we take the hip measurement and we take away the waist measurement from the hip measurement, leaving. So 95, take away 70, okay, gives us 25 centimetres, okay, which is that measurement here. So to establish the back dart proportion, we do 1/5 of the difference, take away 1 centimetre. So 1/5 of the difference is going to be 5 centimetres, that's this part, okay, and then we want to take away 1. So that gives us 4 centimetres. Okay, and that's the proportion of the back darts. To establish the side shaping, okay, it's 1/5 of the difference. So again, that's that 5 centimetres plus 1 centimetre. So that gives us a total of 6. To establish the front dart value, we take not the 1/5 difference, but the side shaping. So this 6 centimetres, it asks us for half of the side shaping equals the front darts. So half of 6 centimetres equals 3 centimetres. Okay, so that's all our measurements for the standard size 12 for the skirt block. So the important thing to understand is when drafting each size, you need to work out, or even drafting for personal measurements, you need to work out the equations. So you almost must start back at the beginning. Okay, so if you're working out a size 10, I think the one in the book is a size 10, so the measurements are different, and therefore each scale measurement is different. So you must always remember, okay, if you're starting from scratch, that you work out those proportions based on the equations. Okay, so the first proportion that we're going to plan out. So we're going to start by drafting a really large rectangle, okay? The length of your skirt, okay, so in my case that's going to be 60 centimetres by half of the scale, so that is our 50.5 measurement. So you're probably going to have to do this in a couple of steps. So start first by drafting your one of the sides, so that's centre line, so the 60 centimetre length or your skirt length. So this line here that I'm drafting becomes our centre front. Okay, and then I'm just going to move my ruler actually it's probably easier if you then flip it. Okay, so squaring off that centre line, and you want to mark in 50.5. Again, I like to go a little bit longer and then mark it in. Okay, so we've formed our centre. This line becomes the waistline. Okay, then we're going to square off to form the hemline. So again, squaring off that centre line, okay, at that 60 centimetre length. So you just have to try and orientate your ruler. Again, I'm going to go a little bit further, okay, and mark. Now we work back off the waistline, so squaring down off the waistline. So very, very carefully move your ruler along. Okay, and the good thing about marking it at the bottom and the top is now you have a checkpoint. So if you have any difference in your length, now's the time to work backwards and check your measurement. Okay, so now we have our waistline, our centre front line, hemline and centre back. Okay, so the next line that we're going to plan in, okay, is our side seam position. So we do this by essentially dividing this rectangle in half, or you could think about it using the quarter scale. Okay, so if we measure from our centre front, our quarter scale, which is, this is from, so you want to measure the quarter scale from the back. So we want to measure 25.25. It should end up halfway if you've been really accurate. So again, we're squaring off the top. If you really wanted to, you could mark it down the bottom and mark it up the top, okay, to give yourself that checkpoint. But hopefully, again, because you're using your technical pencil, okay, you're nice and accurate. But just double check that measurement up the top there. Okay, that should also be 25.25 from there to there. Okay, now I'm just going to, in another colour so that we keep, you'll be able to refer to this one. Okay, so in red, I'm going to draft the hip line. So we measure down 20 centimetres from the centre front waistline, okay, and then we square across to meet the back. So measuring down 20, okay. So I'm squaring off that centre front line, Okay, so the red line forms that hip line there. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to extend our side seam beyond the waistline. Okay, so you can just put your ruler on following that line, okay, and continue up. Now, what we want to do is measure up from that waistline 1 centimetre and square out in both directions. Just because my marker's a bit big. Okay, and I'm going to flip my ruler. We'll rotate it so that it's, again, we're squaring off the side seam. That's what that line was at the quarter scale. Right. Okay, so we've sort of got a bit of a cross. Okay, now up from your hip line, measure up 2 centimetres and put a balance mark. Okay, so this is where now we need to use the side shaping measurement. So if you remember back to your those proportions that we worked out together, the side shaping is going to be 6 centimetres. So that's in total. So what that means is from this centre line, we're going to measure out 3 centimetres in this direction and 3 centimetres in this direction, giving us a total of 6. Essentially, the side shaping is like a big giant dart. In some ways, you could argue. Okay, so I've marked those points. Now with an angled line, join the points back to the balance mark on the side seam. Probably could have been a little bit more accurate there. Okay, now what we want to do is from this point in the front, we're going to join with an angled line back to the original center front line here. Okay, so I'm just angling my ruler till I'm intersecting both points. Now moving on to the back, what you want to do is at this point here, you want to measure down 0.5 of a centimetre, so 5 mil. Okay, and mark a point. So this is on your centre back waist, from the centre back waistline. Okay, so this line, unlike the front, gets angled between that dropped point. So the waistline in the back drops down ever so slightly, and this is again to help with fit. Okay, because we have more of an arch along our back waistline. Okay, so that now blocks out the basic proportions of the skirt block.